Hello everyone and welcome to your channel Happy Learning with Anugamini. This is Dr. Anugamini Srivastav and here I am to discuss about lots and lots of research and many other related content on my channel. So let's begin with today's video. In my previous video I mentioned to you about how you can follow some steps to derive your research objectives and your research hypothesis based on the gaps and questions that you have. Now in today's video, I'm going to put some examples in front of you so that you can actually understand how you can actually do all these kind of steps. So let's begin with that. So in the first step, I just wrote my research question. Now how I derived my research question? These are the random questions when I started thinking of a particular research problem. So when I came across, I observed something about that particular disciplinary area and I thought that this is a problem which should be researched upon. There are a number of questions that popped up in my mind and I immediately wrote them all. So I just simply listed all those lists and segregated them, or you can say categorized them from which is highly required at this point of time to be researched upon to least required research upon topic. Okay, so I segregated whole of the questions and started with one simple question for you to put an example. Okay. So the research question which I started upon was, does career inclination and personal attributes shape students' perception towards technical courses? So being in a technical profession, professional education system, I quite was curious about all those things. So I started thinking about it and this was one question I'm putting forth. Now based on this question, I started reading a lot of literature, okay, and I came across a certain research gap which is commonly indicated in multiple research papers and as well as blogs, where they have highlighted that student perception about the service quality of technical education system is studied, but the way student perception is shaped is yet to be explored in the Indian context. So this gap actually kind of helped me to somehow think of my research question again. Now you might think that, okay ma'am, you just got a research question, immediately got a gap too. No, that was not the case. Just like I made a list of research questions, I made a list of research gaps as well that I identified while doing my initial level of literature review. Okay, and through that I identified my gaps and then I tried to match each of the gaps with the questions that I have written in my list. So with that process, I identified this gap is something which is quite lined up with my research question. Now once I was done with my research question and my research gap identification, I tried to identify the variables. Now variables were like this: career inclination, personal attributes and student perception. So this was basically based on that gap itself. And here you can see the terms that I'm using is also in line with the research gaps, which clearly indicates that the terminologies which I have identified as a variable is quite often used in this field, in the field I'm trying to work upon. Okay. Always have this in your mind. Do not use any kind of terminology which is just popping up in your mind, but it's not nowhere reused in your industry or academia or the disciplinary research area into which you're working. Okay, so always search that kind of terminologies. Now based on my gaps and my variables that I've identified, I'm pretty sure that what my objectives will look like. So I have written like this: to measure the effect of career inclination and personal attributes on student perception towards the technical course. So this was quite simple. This was quite doable also, achievable also within a time frame which I have actually in my organization, and I can actually feel that this is something which I'm quite concrete about what I can do. Now with respect to this objective, it is also clear to me that the methodology that I need to use is quantitative in nature, and hence I need to develop a hypothesis rather than a proposition. So I developed my hypothesis like H1A, career inclination has an effect on the student perception, while H1B, personal attributes have an effect on the student perception. Now here you can see, because the dependent variable was student perception very common in both of them, that's why hypothesis looks like H1A and H1B. If both the variables are different in both the hypotheses, I'll use H1 and H2 in that case. So this is how I actually derived my research questions to my objectives, and it actually made me understand that what exactly I can do within the time frame as well. So lots and lots of things were helped. Topic is narrowed down. I know what methodology I'll be using. I know what my hypothesis is going to be, and the broader objective that I will attain if my findings is somehow in favorable condition like that. So these were the simple steps that you can actually follow to develop your hypothesis and your objectives very clearly. I'm pretty sure that if you follow these all steps, from research questions to gaps to identify your concepts and variables, your objectives will be clear as well as achievable for you within the time frame of your research journey. If you like the content that I just shared with you all, do consider subscribing to my channel. It will be high motivation for me to continue to speak about such topics which can ease the process of research work. At the same time, do share my video to all your friends and colleagues who are aspiring and still are working in the field of research in their masters, in their graduate level, in their PhD level, and even in their corporate life. If they are thinking of doing any research, I'm pretty sure that this simple process is going to help them a lot. Happy researching!